The Lambkin and the Little Fish. Once upon a time, there was a little brother and sister who loved each other dearly. Their real mother had died, and they had a stepmother who was not kind to them and secretly did everything she could to harm them. It happened that the two were playing with other children in a meadow in front of the house, and there was a pond in the meadow that reached up to one side of the house. The children ran around it, catching each other and playing a counting out game. Enike, Binnik, let me live, and I'll give you my little bird. The little bird shall fetch me straw. The straw I'll give to the cow. The cow shall give me milk. The milk I'll give to the baker. The baker shall bake me a cake. The cake I'll give to the cat. The cat shall catch mice for me. The mice I'll hang up in the smoke. And then it will snow. They stood in a circle while playing this, and the one on whom the word snow fell had to run away, and the others would chase and catch them. As they were merrily playing like this, the stepmother watched them from the window and became angry. Since she understood witchcraft, she bewitched them both, turning the little brother into a fish and the little sister into a lamb. The fish swam back and forth in the pond and was sad, and the lamb walked up and down the meadow, also sad, and would not eat or touch a blade of grass. A long time passed, and then strangers came to the castle. The wicked stepmother thought, "Now is a good opportunity," and called the cook, saying to him, "Go and fetch the lamb from the meadow and slaughter it. We have nothing else for the guests." The cook went and got the lamb, took it into the kitchen, and tied its feet. The lamb bore all this patiently. Just as he had drawn out his knife and was whetting it on the doorstep to kill the lamb, he noticed a little fish swimming back and forth in the water in front of the drain and looking up at him. This was the little brother, for when the fish had seen the cook take the lamb away, it had swum along in the pond to the house. The lamb then called down, "Ah, little brother in the pond so deep, how sad is my poor heart. The cook is sharpening his knife to take away my tender life." The little fish answered, "Ah, little sister, up on high, how sad is my poor heart, while in this pond I lie." When the cook heard that the lamb could speak and said such sad words to the fish below, he was terrified and thought this could be no ordinary lamb, but must be bewitched by the wicked woman in the house. He said, "Be easy, I will not kill you," and took another animal, prepared it for the guests, and brought the lamb to a kind peasant woman to whom he told everything he had seen and heard. The peasant woman, who had been the little sister's nurse, suspected who the lamb was and took it to a wise woman. The wise woman pronounced a blessing over the lamb and the little fish, restoring them to their human forms, and then took them both into a little hut in a great forest, where they lived alone, but content and happy. Simileberg. There were two brothers, one rich, the other poor. However, the rich one gave nothing to the poor one, who had to eke out a meager living from trading in corn. Often he fared so poorly that he had no bread for his wife and children. One day, as he was driving his cart through the forest, he saw a large, bare mountain to the side. Since he had never seen it before, he stopped and looked at it with amazement. As he stood there, he saw 12 large, wild men coming toward him. Believing they were robbers, he pushed his cart into the bushes, climbed up a tree, and waited to see what would happen. The 12 men approached the mountain and called out, Mountain Semsi, open yourself." Immediately, the bare mountain split open in the middle, and the 12 entered. Once inside, the mountain closed again. After a short while, it opened once more, and the men came out carrying heavy sacks on their backs. When they were all back in the daylight, they said, Mountain Semsi, close yourself." Then the mountain shut tight, and no entrance could be seen, and the 12 went away. Once they were completely out of sight, the poor man climbed down from the tree, curious about what secrets might be hidden in the mountain. He approached it and said, Mountain Semsi, open yourself." And the mountain opened for him as well. He went inside and found the entire mountain was a cavern full of silver and gold, with great heaps of pearls and glittering jewels piled up like corn. Unsure of what to do and whether he might take some of the treasures, he finally filled his pockets with gold, leaving the pearls and precious stones behind. When he came out again, he also said, Mountain Semsi, close yourself." and the mountain shut tight. He then drove his cart home. Now he no longer had to worry, and with his gold, he could buy bread and even wine for his wife and children. He lived happily and honestly, helped the poor, and did good for everyone. When the money ran out, he went to his brother, borrowed a bushel measure, and fetched more. However, he still didn't touch the greatest treasures. When he wanted to fetch something for the third time, he borrowed the measure from his brother again. The rich brother had long been envious of his siblings' wealth and the fine household he had established. He couldn't understand where the riches came from and what his brother was doing with the measure. So he devised a trick and coated the bottom of the measure with pitch. When he got the measure back, a piece of gold was stuck to it. Immediately, he went to his brother and asked, "What have you been measuring with the bushel?" The other replied, "Corn and barley." Then the rich brother showed him the gold piece and threatened to take him to court if he didn't tell the truth. The poor man then revealed everything that had happened. The rich brother immediately had a carriage prepared, drove out, determined to use the opportunity better and to bring back much greater treasures. When he arrived at the mountain, he called out, Mountain Semsi, open yourself." The mountain opened and he went inside. There lay all the riches before him, and for a long time he didn't know what to grab first. Finally, he loaded himself with as many precious stones as he could carry. As he tried to carry his load outside, his heart and mind were so full of the treasures that he forgot the name of the mountain and cried, Mountain Simele, open yourself." But that was not the right name, and the mountain did not move and remained shut. He became frightened, but the more he tried to remember, the more confused his thoughts became, and the treasures were of no use to him anymore. In the evening, the mountain opened, and the 12 robbers came in. When they saw him, they laughed and exclaimed, "Bird, we finally caught you. Did you think we hadn't noticed that you had come in twice before? We couldn't catch you then. This third time you shall not get out again." He cried, "It wasn't me, it was my brother." But no matter how much he begged for his life and pleaded, they cut off his head. Going a-traveling. There was once a poor woman who had a son who so much wished to travel. His mother said, "How can you travel? We have no money at all for you to take with you." The son replied, "I will manage very well for myself. I will always say, 'Not much, not much, not much.'" He walked for a long time and always said, "Not much, not much, not much." He then passed by a group of fishermen and said, "God help you, not much, not much, not much." "What do you say, fellow? Not much?" And when the net was drawn out, they had not caught much fish. So one of them hit the youth with a stick and said, "Have you never seen me threshing?" "What should I say then?" asked the youth. "You should say, 'Get it full, get it full.'" He walked again for a long time and said, get it full," until he came to the gallows, where they had a poor sinner whom they were about to hang. He said, "Good morning. Get it full, get it full." "What do you say, fellow? Get it full? Do you want to imply that there are still more wicked people in the world? Isn't this enough?" And he again got some blows on his back. "What should I say then?" he asked. "You should say, 'May God comfort the poor soul.'" The youth walked again for a long while and said, "May God comfort the poor soul." Then he came to a pit where a knacker was cutting up a horse. The youth said, "Good morning. May God comfort the poor soul." "What do you say, you bad fellow?" And the knacker hit him around the ears with his knacker's hook, so that he could not see out of his eyes. "What should I say then?" "You should say, 'There lies the carrion in the pit.'" So he walked on, and always said, "There lies the carrion in the pit. There lies the carrion in the pit." He came to a cart full of people and said, "Good morning, there lies the carrion in the pit." The cart then fell into a pit, and the driver took his whip and cracked it upon the youth until he was forced to crawl back to his mother. For the rest of his life, he never went traveling again. The Donkey. Once upon a time, there lived a king and a queen who were rich and had everything they wished for, except for children. The queen lamented over this day and night, saying, "I am like a field on which nothing grows." Finally, God fulfilled their wishes. When the child was born, however, it did not look like a human child, but was a young donkey. When the mother saw this, her lamentations and cries began in earnest. She would have rather had no child at all than a donkey, and said that they should throw it into the water so the fishes might eat it. However, the king said, "No, since God has given him, he shall be my son and heir, and after my death, he shall sit on the royal throne and wear the kingly crown." So the little donkey was brought up, grew bigger, and its ears grew tall and straight. The donkey was of a merry disposition, jumped about, played, and especially enjoyed music. So it went to a famous musician and said, "Teach me your art, so that I can play the lute as well as you do." "Ah, dear little master," answered the musician, "that would be very difficult for you. Your fingers are not made for it, and are too big. I fear the strings would not hold." But no excuses were of any use. The little donkey wanted and had to play the lute. It was persistent and diligent, and in the end, learned to play as well as the master himself. One day, the young lord went out walking thoughtfully and came to a well, where he looked in and saw his donkey shape in the mirror clear water. This distressed him so much that he went out into the wide world, taking only one faithful companion with him. They traveled up and down, and at last they came to a kingdom where an old king ruled, who had an only but wonderfully beautiful daughter. The donkey said, "Here we will stay," knocked at the gate and called out, "A guest is outside. Open up so he may enter." When the gate was not opened, he sat down, took his lute, and played it most delightfully with his two front feet. The gatekeeper opened his eyes wide in amazement, ran to the king, and said, "Outside the gate sits a young donkey who plays the lute as well as a skilled master." "Then let the musician come in," said the king. When the donkey entered, everyone started laughing at the lute player. The donkey was then asked to sit and eat with the servants. But it was unwilling and said, "I am no common stable donkey. I am a noble one." Then they said, "If that is what you are, sit with the men of war." "No," said the donkey, "I want to sit with the king." The king smiled and said good-humoredly, "Yes, it shall be as you wish, little donkey. Come here to me." Then he asked, "Little donkey, how do you like my daughter?" The donkey turned its head towards her, looked at her, nodded, and said, "I like her exceedingly. I have never seen anyone so beautiful." "Well then, you shall sit next to her too," said the king. "That is exactly what I want," said the donkey, and it placed itself by her side, ate and drank, and knew how to behave delicately and cleanly. When the noble little animal had stayed a long time at the king's court, it thought, "What good is all this? I must go home again," and let its head hang sadly. It went to the king and asked for its dismissal. But the king had grown fond of it and said, "Little donkey, what ails you? You look as sour as a jug of vinegar. Stay with me, I will give you what you want. Do you want gold?" "No," said the donkey, shaking its head. "Do you want jewels and rich attire?" "Do you want half my kingdom?" "Oh, no." The king then said, "If only I knew what would make you happy. Do you want my beautiful daughter as your wife?" "Oh, yes," said the donkey, "I would indeed like to have her." And he became cheerful and in good spirits, because that was exactly what he had wished for. So a great and magnificent wedding was held. In the evening, when the bride and groom were led into their chamber, the king wanted to know if the donkey would behave courteously and properly, and ordered a servant to hide there. When they were both inside, the groom bolted the door, looked around, and believing they were completely alone, he suddenly threw off his donkey skin and stood there as a handsome royal youth. "Now you see," he said, "who I am, and you also see that I am not unworthy of you." The bride was glad, kissed him, and loved him dearly. However, when morning came, he jumped up, put his animal skin back on, and no one could have guessed what kind of person was hidden beneath it. Soon the old king came by. "Well," he cried, "is the little donkey already awake? You must be quite sad," he said to his daughter, "that you did not get a proper man for your husband?" "Oh no, dear father. I love him as much as if he were the most handsome man in the world, and I will keep him as long as I live." The king was surprised, but the servant who had hidden himself came and revealed everything to him. The king said, "That cannot be true." "Then watch yourself the following night. You will see it with your own eyes. And you know what, Lord King? Take away his skin and throw it into the fire. Then he will be forced to show himself in his true form." "Your advice is good," said the king. And in the evening, when they were asleep, He sneaked in, and when he got to the bed, he saw by the moonlight a proud youth lying there, with the skin cast aside on the ground. He took it away, had a great fire lit outside, and threw the skin into it, staying by it until it was completely burnt to ashes. Because he wanted to see how the deprived youth would react, he stayed awake all night and watched. When the youth woke up at the first light of dawn, he got up and wanted to put on the donkey skin, but it was nowhere to be found. He was alarmed and full of grief and anxiety, saying, "Now I must escape." As he stepped outside, the king stood there and said, "My son, where are you going in such a hurry? What do you have in mind? Stay here. You are such a handsome man, you shall not leave me. I will now give you half my kingdom, and after my death, you shall have it all." "I hope that what begins well also ends well," said the youth. "I will stay with you." The old man gave him half the kingdom, and after a year when he died, the youth had the whole kingdom, and after his father's death, another kingdom as well, and lived in all magnificence. The ungrateful son once, a man and his wife were sitting in front of their house. They had a roasted chicken in front of them, and were about to eat it together. When the man saw his aged father approaching, he quickly took the chicken and hid it because he did not want to share it with him. The old man came, took a drink, and went away. The son then wanted to put the roasted chicken back on the table, but when he reached for it, it had turned into a large toad. The toad jumped into his face and sat there, never going away. Whenever anyone tried to remove it, the toad would glare venomously as if it would leap into their face, so no one dared to touch it. The ungrateful son was forced to feed the toad every day, or else it would feed on his face. Thus he wandered the world without finding any rest.